Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a great show for you guys today on this Thursday afternoon. We're going to have, of course, a Fox News story. Fun. Which is actually not good. I'll have to explain that. Get into detail, and I will. We have some good news on dark money. It's rare that we have good news when it comes to money in politics. We also have a state that privatized their Medicaid. How are they doing with that, by the way? How's that going? Well, we got the details on that one. Specifically, how much it actually costs. Interesting. Then we've got Roy Moore defending Kavanaugh. You're going to love that segment. That is great. I think you'll enjoy it. And then finally, we have a black elected official canvassing while black. Interesting. So that's what we have in the rundown today. So good show, hopefully, as always. Excited to do today's show. If you haven't already, please share the stream. Sharing is caring, of course. Now, let's see. We're doing a subscriber drive. We just hit 88,000 subscribers on the channel. So thank you, everybody who has subscribed, who have been joining in the subscriber drive. We are now working towards 89,000 subscribers. So, you know, share with your friends, family, neighbors, anybody who's interested at all in politics. Please share with them and, you know, see if they can subscribe as well if they like the content. So anyway. There's that. I want to give the thanks to the patrons, of course, patreon.com/TYTNation. You guys help support the show as well. I have not been able to put yesterday's video roundup on Patreon yet. I'm going to work on that today. We've been working on Facebook as well, facebook.com/TYTNation. That helps out a lot as well. Liking our Facebook page. We're trying to get to 10,000 followers there. So we're working that social media, man. We're working it. Maybe one day somebody will take the show seriously. I kid, of course. Okay. So before I get into the show, I've been getting some tweets, of course, from progressives, people that I disagree with on when it comes to the issue of Dem enter versus Dem exit. Of course. So we're still having that conversation, which I think it's a conversation that should have been settled by now. I think I'm fairly clear on that. Inside, outside pressure. So if you want to go do and pressure, you know, the country to go left from the outside of the Democratic Party, that's absolutely fine. Like, do what's comfortable for you, as long as you're actually doing something. Whether you're pushing green candidates, in promoting them, which is fine, or pushing within the Democratic Party, which I think is also fine. So somebody asked me if I had a change of heart when it comes to reforming the Democrats. Let's make this clear. We're not reforming anything. We're replacing. You don't go and reform the Democratic Party. That's not the point. The point is to kick the bums out, replace them with progressives. So now, look, somebody is pointing out that, oh, but here's the problem. We have two people, specifically Andrew Gillum and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that are so-called changing their verbiage and backtracking, right? So, look, here's the thing. Sometimes you got to play the game a little bit. Politics is complicated, and especially policy. I don't care what they say as long as they do the right thing policy-wise. Okay? So, look, there's a lot of progressives slamming Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why? Because she's like, okay, let's vote for Democrats in November. That includes Andrew Cuomo. Is that a specific endorsement of Andrew Cuomo? Not necessarily. It's, hey, let's vote for Democrats, New York Democrats. let's do the blue wave thing. That is not controversial. That is not her turning her back on progressives. So, at least in my opinion, and you can have whatever opinion you want, but I'm just saying, seriously, that's not an endorsement. That's I mean, if it is an endorsement, it's the most tepid endorsement I've ever seen. Because it's not even calling him by name. It's just saying, let's vote for Democrats already. Now, would it have been great if Cynthia Nixon won the primary in New York? Absolutely. But see, here's the thing. When you try to go, like, when you try to tear progressives down for doing a strategy that you don't like, and I'm not saying these people are doing that, but, like, maybe you should look at your strategy here, because what you're not doing is helping. You're actually not helping get progressive change when you tear people down from the inside, right? Who are in the inside, who are actually trying to do things. And so, look, you need to make strategic alliances. Look at Ro Khanna. Now, Ro Khanna got in a lot of trouble for not doing, specific endorsement, for endorsing Crowley, right? That's related to Ocasio-Cortez. Is Ocasio-Cortez going to hold that against against Ro Khanna? No, because Crowley helped Ro Khanna get elected, and Ro Khanna is deeply progressive, and he's right on policy. You have to make friends. You can't just go it alone and expect to actually get anything done. There has to be strategic alliances. There has to be some compromise. Some. Not compromising your political policy or your principles, but saying, okay, I'll give an endorsement here, or I'll take the party line and say, let's vote blue. This isn't complicated. It is the politics of compromise. It is actually what happens when you get into office. So now with Gillum, I'm actually not surprised with Gillum. Gillum is, look, he was somebody who supported, Hillary Clinton, and there are conflicting reports where, Gillum, he's backtracked on Medicare for all, but then he tweets out, I'm in support of Medicare for all, plus helping Medicaid and this and that. So in some tweets, he's like, affordable health care, and other tweets, he's like, let's do Medicare for all. So I can understand why there would be a little bit of confusion there. I don't like that. I think that's probably interns. I think that's also part of, the message here, consultants. Because remember, consultants tell you to stay away from using single-payer Medicare for all. They don't think it plays well. Well, 70% of the American public agree with that policy. But then again, you have to, cater to your local constituencies as well. And if that polls well and plays well in that area, or if it doesn't, then you have to kind of change your language around in order to get votes. But then try to present your side, try to present that policy as a viable policy. And so, again, it gets in the weeds, it gets very complicated, and there is a strategery to this. And so sometimes you're going to hear politicians say things that are like, hey, wait a minute, that's not, why aren't you being straight up and being doing this and saying this? Don't worry. If they're still pushing for the same policies, and that's why you have to watch your politicians, of course. But as long as they're pushing for the same policies and they actually get into office and do these actions, and actions speak louder than words, then that's fine. If they don't, if they decide, you know what, we're not going to do that, we're not going to push for Medicare for all after all, I'm going to vote for this, and then I'm going to stop pushing policy-wise, and then start taking big money from health insurance corporations, well, then then you know your answer. Then you know that, okay, that person was not as advertised. So again, you've really got to watch them. But I would stay clear of criticizing every single move every single politician makes, especially when they're actually on your side. And I don't think AOC is against us. I think Gillum would be much, much better than DeSantis. And you also have to understand, like, you have to pick your battles. So, am I completely happy with Beto O'Rourke? No, of course not. No, I think Beto could be far more progressive on certain issues. Is he better than the person that he's going against, Ted Cruz? Absolutely. Pick your battle, right? Am I in favor of Andrew Gillum and everything he said? Well, again, I have some problems with him moderating his language a little bit, but I understand that's the game. So I'm going to watch him closely. That said, is he better than Ron DeSantis? Absolutely. Pick your battles, right? We are fighting a long-term battle for progressive ideas. And that's what people have to understand. We are fighting a long-term fight. So in the long term, sometimes you have to be strategic. You have to create these alliances in order to get shit done. You are working with other people, after all, because you cannot, this is not a monarchy. And this is not, and some people think, well, if Bernie Sanders gets into office, he's going to do all these amazing things. No, he's got to make alliances. He's got to get in with some establishment figures and then change that culture from the inside. And so that takes time. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, don't understand that. And I understand that, look, yeah, we can't wait. And it's true that there are people in need this minute. At the same time, one person cannot change everything by themselves. And so, and look, that's what Donald Trump ran on. Donald Trump ran on, I can do this by myself. You can only count on me. And guess what? What has he been able to do? Nothing. So it's not the way that our government works. And so, again, long-term strategy, pick your battles, and keep fighting for policy. And I don't care who is championing this policy. If you're championing this policy and you're actually fighting for it, then I'm on your side and you are on my side. Okay. I think I'm clear, hopefully, on that. All right. It's an interesting way to start a show with an audience question. Though I'm not certain that that person is even watching at the moment. But, okay. Anyway, let's get into the stories. President Trump is apparently doing Fox News' bidding. On Monday, Donald Trump had ordered the Justice Department to declassify highly sensitive materials related to an ongoing investigation into, surprise, Donald Trump's campaign. Excuse me. Got a little cough going on there. Let me start this again. All right. Sorry about that. All right. It appears that President Trump is literally doing the bidding of Fox News anchors. Now, on Monday, Donald Trump had ordered the Justice Department to declassify highly sensitive materials related to an ongoing investigation into his own administration's campaign. So, interesting. Now, specifically, the president demanded the release of a variety of classified materials related to the FISA warrant application that the FBI submitted to monitor Carter Page. Now, Carter Page, of course, instrumental in the Mueller investigation. Now, the FBI, all FBI reports of interviews with senior Justice Department official Bruce Orr, this is more of the documents they want, who communicated with former British spy and dodgy dossier author Christopher Steele, and every text message that James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Orr had ever sent about the Russia investigation. The president stipulated that said text messages were to be made public without redaction, ostensibly ordering the Justice Department to disclose sensitive intelligence sources and methods if that is what full transparency requires. So look, you guys know me. You guys know on the issue of transparency, I'm generally in favor of it. Okay. However, I do draw a line on if that transparency puts either our troops at risk or our intelligence sources at risk. Okay? Now, that was the claim with Chelsea Manning. Oh, Chelsea, by releasing this video of our soldiers, the Apache helicopter video, that put our soldiers at risk. No, it didn't. None of the information Chelsea Manning released to WikiLeaks hurt anything. Not our soldiers, not our intelligence sources, nothing. That was a bullshit claim, right? Now, it did hurt the administration's pride. And by the way, that was the Obama administration. And I was definitely in favor of Chelsea Manning releasing those documents. Still in favor of it. Edward Snowden, same thing, right? So what he released is the fact that the American government is spying on its own citizens and how they're doing it. That also hurt pride because it wasn't to protect the United States. None of what the NSA had actually done in their spying on American citizens had actually stopped any attacks on American citizens. That didn't happen, right? And you could talk about even the Hillary Clinton emails, right? Again, totally in favor of that transparency because, again, it didn't hurt the government. What it did is that it basically showed us what the Hillary Clinton campaign, what we suspected was going on, and then what actually happened, how they screwed over Bernie Sanders, etc. None of that put anybody's lives at risk or intelligence sources. And at the end of the day, I think that those were vital disclosures to the American public. This, a little bit different. Because what Trump is doing is that he's ordering these documents to be unredacted. Now, that has the outcome of putting some of our intelligence sources at risk, especially those that are doing work on the Russia investigation and maybe some of our intelligence sources overseas. Well, what could happen if those people are unmasked? If those people are revealed? Especially if they're, I don't know, spying for the American government on a possible geopolitical foe. Odds are they could be arrested or killed. So, I'm just saying. And not only that, but it might expose our methods for gathering that information that's disastrous. That is not very smart and sort of very, very suspect for a president to do. Does he not realize what that actually would mean for national security? No, probably not. See, as I've told you before, Donald Trump is too stupid to think about the consequences of his actions. And the thing that he's most worried about, the reason behind all this, is because he's desperate to punish the people working on the Russia investigation. Because, for whatever reason, he wants that investigation ended. In fact, Eric Levitz of New York Magazine writes, not only was the president interfering in an active investigation, in which he has a conflict of interest, he was also potentially jeopardizing the security of American intelligence assets and or the comfort that foreign intelligence agencies have in sharing their secrets with the United States. This has the Justice Department under Jeff Sessions saying, yeah, we're going to take our time with this and not really rush through this. So you're going to have to wait for a while. That, of course, prompted Trump and many of his tirades against Jeff Sessions to say, I don't have an attorney general. Remember, he thinks that the attorney general is actually supposed to represent and protect Donald Trump, when in reality, it's to protect the office of the president. Well, not even that, really. It's not to protect Trump, that's for sure. But it's also to prosecute crimes. So, look, here's the thing. What's interesting about this is that Trump already can look at the documents himself. He's the president of the United States. He has access to that. However, in an interview with The Hill on Tuesday, Trump finally gave the reason that he wants to do this. Now, when asked by Buck Sexton, which is a great name, have you reviewed the memos yourself? What do you expect them to show? If so, Trump replied, I have not seen them, I have been asked by many people in Congress, as you know, to release them. I have watched commentators that I respect begging the President of the United States, him, to release them. I have been asked by so many people that I respect, please, the great Lou Dobbs, the great Sean Hannity, the wonderful, great Jeanine Pirro. Understand, that's why he's doing this. Jeanine Pirro asked me, Judge Jeanine, how am I supposed to say no to Judge Jeanine? Or Hannity? Or the great Lou Dobbs? They keep asking me. And I'm like, why don't I? I am the President of the United States, after all. Why don't I just give you this document? So Trump is literally putting U.S. intel sources in danger because of Sean Hannity. Frickin' Sean Hannity. Because of Fox News. So then, of course, they can run segments on how this is fake news, this is the deep state, and American intelligence is absolutely the worst. And believe me, I have some mixed feelings on American intelligence sources myself. NSA, not fantastic. Not a fan. FBI, not a fan. But at the same time, you are putting people in danger. These are people that, again, are doing intelligence for the United States, and some maybe even embedded in other countries or have contacts in other countries who revealed, if revealed, could end up with people being murdered. Also, you know, they can get a few extra hits so they can continue to spin stories in order to protect Donald Trump. That's why he's doing this. That's why he's doing this. And here's the thing. Fox News is as much journalism as I'm a sports reporter. None of this information that will come out will actually serve the public good. This doesn't show us how the same intelligence sources were spying in on Americans. That doesn't show that. No, this is to help Donald Trump. It doesn't show what our soldiers are actually doing overseas. That helps us make a change in policy. No, this is, hey, look at the text messages from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Oh man, they're so unfair to Donald Trump. Everything he does, you guys have to understand, everything he does is for the benefit of Donald Trump. Jesus, man. This is simply so that Fox News can out people looking into Russia, attack them, build a case against them, so at the end of the day, maybe Trump can fire them, if he hasn't already. Look, you know who else would know after Fox News would run these ridiculous segments on these intelligence sources? China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. Pretty much the whole world. Donald Trump is too stupid to cover or to care. I mean, for Christ's sakes, man. He's putting people's lives at risk for himself and his ass-kissing buddies. We have the worst excuses for journalists, giving ideas to the worst excuse of president that we've ever had. If a Democratic president were taking orders like these from CNN or MSNBC, you know what the right wing would be shouting? Treason! Treason! And of course, they would be marching in front of the White House with pitchforks and probably guns. But again, they don't care. They do not care. We've got to get this self-serving clown out of the White House before he destroys whatever credibility we have left in the world, which admittedly ain't much. Okay. Insanity. Okay. Moving on. So earlier this week, dark money groups have been dealt a blow after the Supreme Court decided not to take up a particular case and to let a stay continue. I'm sorry. Hold. That is wrong. Let me try that again. Dark money groups earlier today have been dealt a blow after the Supreme Court refused to take up this case. HuffPost explains that the Supreme Court had allowed a lower court decision to go into effect on Tuesday, invalidating a key regulation that created a loophole for undisclosed spending. Now, that decision, of course, came after Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, that is a liberal watchdog group, fought for the past 6 years to get the Federal Election Commission to enforce campaign finance laws against Crossroads GPS. Now, Crossroads GPS, of course, is the Karl Rove-funded so-called nonprofit group. Now, this means the Supreme Court, again, they did not take up this case. They said, look, the lower court, we're going to respect the lower court's decision on this dark money group. Now, that means that any group that runs as an independent expenditure, right? So what's an independent expenditure? That's an election ad that expressly calls for the election or defeat of a candidate. So that's what an independent expenditure is. And the new rules stipulate that any independent expenditure in excess of $250 will have to disclose all political donors above $200. So if you spend above $200, then guess what? You're going to be named. You can no longer hide. All those big donors will now be public. Wow. Huge implications, right, for the midterms. Now, dark money groups have already spent about $65 million, according to the Center for Responsive Politics. Anything they spend after this, as of 2 days ago, will now be public. So everybody will get to know who is bankrolling these groups. Now, before the ruling went into effect, the top dark money spenders included the Republican-aligned Business Lobby U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Democratic Party nonprofit Majority Forward, and Charles and David Koch's American for Prosperity. If these groups spend another dollar to call for an election or defeat of a federal candidate, they will be required to disclose all contributors above $200 to their political operations. So it's a big win for transparency. Now we get to know who is bankrolling what and how much. Now, Charles Koch, head of Koch Industries, runs one of the largest networks that will be affected by the disclosure ruling, so that in some way will limit their reach and how much they're going to spend in political spending, at least when it comes to independent expenditures. Now, Ellen Weintraub, a liberal FEC commissioner, I'm surprised there are still some left, told HuffPost, "I'm very pleased with the results." She said, "The FEC will convene soon to discuss and release guidelines for groups on how to comply with the new disclosure rules. The commission will not be able to, before the election, to issue any regulation to replace the old one, invalidated by the court, as it has to abide by federal laws allowing for a long public comment period." Now, the result is that dark money groups will likely either have to stop spending on the 2018 midterm elections, which is unlikely, or they have to shift tactics if they want to hide their donors. Now, this ruling only covered independent expenditures for ads or other efforts that call for the election or defeat of candidates. They can still spend on a lot of other things, including electioneering communications, better known as issue ads, which applies to spending by outside groups that stop short of calling for the election or defeat of a certain candidate. Now, it is not like it is a victory, but there is a lot left to go. There are still a lot of loopholes. There is still a lot of money in campaigns. Let's not be mistaken. There is still a problem with big money in politics. But this at least sheds some light on who is giving what. Now, this next step, of course, that we need to do, or at least the ultimate goal, is get all the money out of politics. Corporate, big donor, and union money. Get it all out. We don't need money out of politics. Our elections should be publicly funded. There is no reason why they can't be. But until that happens, which we will likely need an amendment for, to make that happen, we should at least openly celebrate that these donors can no longer, when it comes to these ads, operate in the dark. And that's at least a good thing. Okay, I'm going to take a break here. We'll come back. We'll talk about what happened when Iowa privatized Medicaid. So enjoy that segment. If you haven't already, please share the stream. Consider, using the super chat function, and we'll come back. We'll read those right after the break, as well as some other comments in the chat. So we'll do that. Stay right here, Round the Nation. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a couple of super chats to read here. Or one, at least. Platypi, thank you. Zach Sherman says, hey, Jeff, I want to send some bucks. Zach, I love you, man, but you don't have to. I know of your situation. I know you're really, really, really tight on money, so you don't have to do that. I really, really appreciate it, but like, it's something that I just want to make clear that if you can't afford it, don't do it. You guys are obviously, you are first and foremost. So like, if it cuts into your coffee budget for the day, that's fine. You know, like, give up the latte, but if you need the money, don't give it. Keep it, and use it for what you have to do. But I appreciate the thought, and thank you. Sarge Tech asks, hopefully I'm saying that right. What about ad money? Well, all of this is ad money. Independent expenditures are like, basically that money goes to advocacy ads for or against a candidate. So that is considered part of ad money. So that is actually what's getting some light shed on it. So you can actually see who's funding those advocacy ads through that super PAC. You say, like, you know, Charles and David Koch funnel $500,000 in independent expenditures to their super PAC, Prosperities for or Americans for Prosperity, right? Or Crossroads GPS, more like, because that's actually who's doing the independent expenditures. And they put out advocacy ads for, I don't know, you know, whatever ridiculous right-wing politician, and they say, oh, if you should vote against this guy's opponent because he's against freedom, right? That's an independent expenditure. That's actually an ad, and that's where a lot of that money goes. So that we're gonna be able to see the donors, who those donors are. So if it's like your local politician, you know, in the Chamber of Commerce in your town, you get to see that if they are bankrolling some of these large super PACs to run candidates, ads against your candidates or for other candidates in your district, that's an incredibly important tool, so that you know who's doing what, and you can put political pressure to bear on some of these smaller businesses or smaller associations. So, and you can, you know, do boycotts and things like that. So that's why that's important. That's why it's a good tool. So that's why this is really good for transparency. And as far as other types of ads or ad spending, look, communications, that could mean basically talking about issues. You know, do you want, like, you know, driving through on the highway, I've seen like advocacy ads based on abortion. It's not really advocating for or against a candidate, but it's a big billboard like for life. And so you can pretty much tell that it's anti-reproductive rights and kind of steers you towards voting for Republican candidates. So that's the stuff that unfortunately you don't have to disclose your donors on. So I hope I'm being clear in that distinction. Hopefully I've explained it well. Okay. Oh, it's your birthday? Is your birthday today, Angela? Okay. If it is, let me know, and I'll give you a shout out there, for your birthday. So let me. Yeah, that's something I'll do. Just birthday. So. Yeah. Well, if it is your birthday, Angela, happy birthday. That's awesome. And she also, I should be giving her Tuesday. Is it on Tuesday, or it was on Tuesday? Well, happy belated birthday then. And thank you for the super chat. I should be giving you money. It feels like. Oh, the 25th. Okay. Okay. It's on okay, so I will give you a shout out on your birthday. Now that I have that you know, set straight. Mine is too. Mine's on the 27th. So it's actually 25th, actually my dad's birthday. So yeah, mine's next Thursday. So I'll give you a shout out then. And yes, I will be working. I will be doing the show on my birthday. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. Okay, anyway, that's next Thursday. We got a lot of September birthdays. Look at that. And then we got some October birthdays as well. All right, awesome. Let's get back to the show. I still have stories to do. But thank you guys for the super chats. Okay. So conservatives love to argue that government is inefficient and wasteful. And there are certainly some examples that you could point to when it comes to government largesse. For example, there's a story recently about Nikki Haley's curtains, which actually, to be honest, were not actually Nikki Haley's fault. They actually existed during the Obama administration. Nonetheless, there are some examples that you could point to, like the $5,000 toilet seat, right? Toilet seat, as I like to call it. Okay. Now, you can point to it and you can be like, why is the government spending $5,000 on a toilet seat? Or like, you know, a bunch of money on, what is it, donuts? It was a lot of money being spent. But here's the thing. When conservatives point that out, their solution isn't, hey, maybe we should do more oversight. Maybe we should do some better budgeting and make government more efficient. No, their solution is actually taking government assets and handing them over to private corporations. Now, that's what Iowa did in the case of Medicaid. They're like, man, we are spending a lot of money on Medicaid, on insuring poor people, so here's what we need to do. We should just sell it over to private interests. And that's what they did. Now, Medicaid normally is state-run insurance for people who cannot afford insurance on their own, people who are in poverty. Now, how did it turn out after Iowa decided to privatize its Medicaid program? Well, not so good. According to a report in the Des Moines Register, the average cost of insuring an Iowan had increased by 3 times, or at least increased 3 times as fast since the state hired private companies to manage the program when compared to the previous 6 years, according to state figures. Since fiscal 2017, the first full year of privatization, the per-member cost of Iowa's Medicaid program has risen an average of 4.4% per year, according to the Nonpartisan Legislative Services Agency. In previous 6 years, the per-member cost rose an average, and this is for comparison's sake, of only 1.5% per year. So, over the past year, 4.4%. In the last 6 years, 1.5. It just so happens that the cost per person has risen 4.4% as soon as they privatized it. Fascinating. Now, the Legislative Services Agency had compiled the new cost increase figures from past budget reports published by the Department of Human Services, which oversees Medicaid. So, oops. Looks like your cost went up. Surprise. Oh, you thought privatization would save you money. Oh, it turns out that's incorrect. When you put a profit motive inside of a government service, it ends up costing more. Because guess what? Extra funding gets allocated to someone's pockets, or extra savings. Now, from day one, according to Senator Liz Mathis, she's a Hiawatha Democrat, she said, we've doubted privatization and Medicaid would save money. She said that the numbers would be hard to dispute since they come from the department's own reports. So, hey man, that's not fake news. That's your own report. Mathis also said the department has yet to offer solid data backing claims that private Medicaid managers have prevented costly health problems. They've been unable to show any data that Iowans are better off. according to the senator. Now, of course, they push back. Oh, no. That's not at all the case. It's the last year. We didn't add stuff from last year onto this year, and that's why we've had such an increase. But wait a minute. That doesn't account for the last 6 years before that, where you had a steady increase of 1.5%. Whereas as soon as you privatized it, in 1 year, it jumped up 4.4%. Now, Republican Governor Kim Reynolds said in an interview on Wednesday that she remains confident in the promise of Medicaid management that is private, despite these new cost numbers. And Reynolds said the Department of Human Services administrators have assured her part of the explanation for the recent spike in per-member Medicaid costs was bills incurred in past years were being paid in the current budget year. I'm not buying it. I am not buying that at all. I mean, maybe there is, right? And some of that cost can be attributed. But what about the profit motive? Did they even factor that in at all? Look, these companies have fiduciary responsibility to return profit to shareholders. So now, here's the thing. There is some argument that there are private entities that can reduce inefficiencies in order to make more profit, right? They streamline and they get rid of unnecessary bureaucracy, etc. And that's how they save money, right? Well, now, here's the thing. These companies, as soon as they do that, do they just leave that extra money lying around or return it to the taxpayer? No, they put it back in their own pockets. That's the whole point. You reduce inefficiencies and you reduce bureaucracy in order to save money so that you can funnel more money to your shareholders. That is the whole point of a private corporation. If you're a for-profit company and you're working for the government and you're working on a government contract and you leave money sitting on the table from the taxpayer, you're an idiot. You do not deserve to be in business in this model because you suck at it. That's the problem with private corporations. That's the problem with privatizing public goods like Medicaid. Look, and here's the other thing. Generally, Medicare and Medicaid systems run very lean. They're actually more efficient than private industry. In fact, according to the Center for Budget Policy and Priorities, Medicaid provides more comprehensive benefits than private insurance companies that significantly lower out-of-pocket costs for beneficiaries. But because of its lower payment rates to healthcare providers and lower administrative costs, the program ends up being very efficient. Now, of course, there are certain drawbacks to that, whereas there are some doctors out there that won't take Medicaid because of their lower payment rates to healthcare providers. There's a solution to that, though. Medicare for all. Medicare for all, you have one insurer, the government, and then, oh, look at that. These doctors can't refuse you. They have to take you at these lower prices. That's why we argue successfully, and studies have shown, even studies trying to debunk this, have ended up showing that's why Medicare for all saves money. And I know Medicare for all is on a federal level, whereas Medicaid is on a state level. But if you have a Medicare for all system, then those individual state Medicaid programs go away because everybody will have insurance. But anyway, now to show you how much more Medicaid, right? Or I'm sorry, how much more you could save with Medicaid, or how much states traditionally do save with Medicaid. Adults on Medicaid cost about 22% less than if they were covered by private insurance, according to the Urban Institute. 22% less. Again, these are the poorest of the poorest on the adults that qualify for Medicaid, and they cost 22% less. Now, where does that extra 22% go with private insurance? That goes into the shareholders' pockets. That's the whole point. So, look, this is the business model that The whole point is to make profit. That's why you can't run a private insurance program through the state, funded by the state, and save money. That's why it always will cost more than having a government-sponsored program. Now, here's the thing. The Medicaid cost increase from the fiscal year are partly driven by the 8.4% raise the Iowa Department of Human Services agreed last month to get the two managed care companies running the program. That raise, which includes state and federal tax dollars, will send $344 million more to Amerigroup and United Healthcare this fiscal year, which runs through June of 2019. Oh, look at that. They sign up with these groups, Amerigroup and United Healthcare, to run the state's Medicaid system, and then had to give them extra money on top of it, $344 million more. That's where your extra cost is coming from. And where's most of that money going to go? It's going to go into shareholder profits. Now, state administrators do expect costs to drop 4.7% next fiscal year, but then climb 1.8% the following year. What they base their projections on, I have no idea. But that's what they're saying. Those projections, however, do not include any raises the state might negotiate with the managed care companies for those years, which could significantly push up taxpayer spending. This is what happens when you privatize government services. You end up spending more on the same services. It's a fact. Now, when you push privatization, you can't claim that it will save money, because it doesn't. It's been shown in nearly every circumstance that when you privatize something like a Medicaid system or like private health insurance, the costs will continue to go up higher than if you had stayed with the government option or the government plan. This is why, this explains why right now we have the highest healthcare costs in the developed world, because we have this for-profit healthcare system that is always going to cost more because, again, it's all about profit. It's all about profit. So now, of course, why do these politicians do it? Why are the people in Iowa, Republicans mostly, pushing for this? Well, follow the money, Lebowski. These corporations, they donate money to politicians, and they expect a return on investment. And this is a good example of that return. This is the return. More money in their pockets, more pay raises for their executives. What we need is a public Medicare for all system, right? Iowans are going to learn over the next few years that privatization is not the answer. It's not the cure-all for the problems of rising healthcare prices. It is actually the disease. The real cure is a federal Medicare for all system, a single-payer healthcare system which allows doctors to, or allows the government, I should say, to negotiate with both healthcare providers, doctors, hospitals, and drug companies in order to get lower prices for the taxpayer, for you guys. That's what we need, not more bullshit privatization. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can get these stories done quick. In what should be shocking to no one, birds of a feather do flock together, or should I say, accused sexual deviants often stick together. In an interview with the pro-Trump One America News Network, failed GOP Senate candidate Roy Moore urged his fellow Republicans to vote with their conscience and support Brett Kavanaugh. He said, "I think they need to take a stand. I think they need to do what their conscience dictates. They know what's happening." Well, what's happening, Roy? What's happening? Well, this is what he thinks. Watch.
I think it's reflective of what's really happening, that these allegations come in the midst of a Senate confirmation for position on the United States Supreme Court, as they did in my case just 32 days before the election.
Moore explained the media plays a big role in these cases, with the left-wing Washington Post publicizing stories against both Moore and then Kavanaugh.
Okay. I'll get to goofy announcer voice later, because it's funny. But anyway, so basically the whole point is, well, I mean, look at the timing. They bring this up every time there's a voter confirmation. That's what's really doing. The left is just orchestrating these events so that we can derail the nomination or the, you know, or an election. I mean, it's what they did to Roy Moore. No, they didn't. One of Roy Moore's accusers was a registered Republican. And he's like, and she was like, yeah, that's what he did to me. I mean, some of the stuff that Roy Moore was alleged to have done that was corroborated by a lot of different people is gross. He's basically alleged to have done child molestation. I mean, it's gross. So yeah, he's kind of the last guy to talk about this. But anyway, now here's the thing. On this specific accuser, the Kavanaugh accuser, she actually brought it up in the therapy session years ago, right? But the reason that it's big news now is because there is a lot more scrutiny on Kavanaugh. And there should be, since he is up for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. Now, you can have ideological differences with people on the Supreme Court. I have a lot of ideological differences with Neil Gorsuch, right? Neil Gorsuch, big corporatist, very, very, very right-wing. But you notice that during his confirmation hearing, people weren't like, he's a child molester, or he's a rapist. You know why? It's because he's actually not. If there were evidence of that, don't you think Democrats would have brought it up? No, of course not. And again, there's a million problems with Neil Gorsuch, but attempted rape or sexual assault is not one of them. Okay? So this whole thing, oh, they bring it up every time that there's somebody. No, there were very credible allegations back when he was in high school. And look, if you do sexual assault in high school, that is one of the things that time does not forgive. Because when you think about it, if you're the victim of that, do you ever forget? Or in time, does it just go away? Does it hurt less? Does it impact you less? No, it stays with you. There's no reason that we should let it go just because it's been 20 or so years. It is a significant crime. But anyway, now here's the thing. He's going to be there for decades, right? That's a lifetime appointment. He's going to make important decisions that deal directly with reproductive rights. I should think the minimum requirement for you to be able to make those important decisions and sit on that important seat is to not be an alleged rapist. Just saying, that should be a low bar. But again, here, this is the Republican Party. This is Roy Moore that we're talking about. Now he continues with this ridiculous argument.
But while the tactic may be transparent, Moore says liberals don't care because, quite simply, it works.
I think they don't care about its transparency. They just use it because it's effective. They know that on the one hand, you offend women if you believe somebody that says they weren't guilty of sexual misconduct. On the other hand, if you don't believe them, then you're condemning the person accused of guilt to prove his own innocence. Catch-22.
But as Roy Moore points out, Republicans are too afraid of appearing insensitive to take a stand. And so instead, they lie down and allow Democrats to run the show with a politically motivated charade.
God, I love the projection. And also, incredibly goofy announcer voice. And they're letting the Democrats get away with it in this politically motivated charade. Dude, bring it down. Talk like a human being. I'm just saying. Nobody talks outside that except for like a goofy broadcast. Just bring it down. Bring it down. I know you're trying to angle for a job on Fox News. In fact, all these One America News Network people, that's what they ultimately want. They want to get on Fox News. Bring it down. Bring it down. Anyway. Okay. So here's the thing. Democrats don't care about transparency. Nope. They only use this because it's effective. Really? Well, it's... Okay, well, here's the thing. So you've had a few Democratic scandals. You've had Al Franken. Now, there are some people that were defending Franken. I didn't because I thought, no, the guy's got to go. What he did was definitely inappropriate, and you can disagree with me on that, but I like to think that I'm consistent. So Franken, one that hurt personally, of course, was, and for some reason I can't think of his name. I hate when that happens. But, you know, Medicare for All, HR 676. He was a proud sponsor of that. And that hurt because he was progressive. But there were allegations, and they were credible. He had to go. And, you know, look, you even have Keith Ellison now under fire for doing abuse. You know what? He's got to go. There's a doctor's note now. He's deeply progressive. And I like Keith Ellison, but I do not like that. That is not progressive. That is not somebody that I would want to represent me. And there are other progressives out there, other great progressives that can do just as good of a job, maybe even a better job, without that kind of personal baggage. So, but, you know, so you want to talk about how people on the left, oh, they just want to, they don't care about this. They don't care about transparency. They don't care about doing the right thing. It's all about politics. No, that's projection. That's projection. Massive, massive projection. So, look, you know, they accuse the other side of what they do. But anyway, now as far as offensive, right? You know what's offensive to women? Not believing them when they put themselves in personal danger when they accuse someone in power of a sexual assault. Christine Blasey Ford has been threatened and chased out of her own home through these allegations, because of these allegations. She's been doxxed, relentlessly smeared by the right. I showed you the video of that yesterday. They even want to call her up and testify before Congress. Now, some of you might think, well, what's the matter? She made these allegations. She should be able to testify before Congress about them. But not Kavanaugh? That seems to be sort of ridiculous. Her, but not Kavanaugh's friend, who apparently, or classmate, who was in the room, allegedly with him, when she was assaulted? No, the whole point to have her testify is to put her up in front of a bunch of Republican congressmen who will then try to systematically destroy her. That's the whole point. Now, what we should do instead is first halt the hearings and then allow authorities to investigate these allegations. If they are true, and if they are found to be true, Judge Kavanaugh should withdraw his nomination immediately. Immediately. But in the meantime, those hearings should not go forward at all. But here's the thing. What happens when a lot of times when women come forward, and this is why they don't, by the way, there's always that question of, why now? Why didn't they come forward before? Why don't women come forward more often? Well, this is why. They're doubted, shamed, put in front of hearings, who will often ask ridiculous questions like, what were you wearing? Did you drink anything? All those questions have one purpose, to try to put the blame onto the woman. To try to put the onus on the woman. That's what a lot of, unfortunately, conservative culture is about. Protecting the man, putting all the onus on the woman. Well, if you don't want to be your butt grabbed or ogled, dress up. Avoid certain people. Avoid certain places. as if putting all the onus on the woman to protect herself, and then just allowing the men to be obnoxious pigs. And that's the truth of it. Men, fellow men, we got to take responsibility and maybe not do that shit. This is what they do. Look, again, we need an investigation. We need to find the truth. And the truth will speak for itself. Okay. One last story for you guys. All right. So this seems to be an issue in America where black people get arrested or stopped or have the police called on them for doing normal human things. It's a bit of a strange situation. Doesn't seem to happen anywhere else. But black people can be doing things like barbecuing or sitting at their own apartment pools or minding their own business in their own apartments where, you know, and then you end up having somebody calling the cops on you or a cop busting in your apartment and shooting you to death. That seems to be happening a lot. Now, the newest example of this is when a candidate was stopped by police for knocking on doors. Well, that's interesting. Now, the Capital Times reports that someone had called the police in August after watching Dane County Supervisor Sheila Stubbs knocking on doors. She was in the middle of a political campaign. That's really strange. Now, the 46-year-old Stubbs said that she had to explain to the officer that she was running a political campaign. She said, "Officer, I'm campaigning. That involves knocking on doors and going from house to house. That's what you do. That's called canvassing. That's politics 101. But apparently, that was somehow suspicious to somebody in that particular neighborhood where she was stopped. Hey, there's a black person. There's knocking on doors. Somebody help. Obviously, she doesn't belong there. Scary black person. Ridiculous. Now, thankfully, the officer's report indicated that the encounter ended amiably. Nobody got shot. With Stubbs sharing her cell phone number with the officer with an offer to help the officer improve race relations in Madison. So this happened in Wisconsin. So here's the thing. That's an example of attempting to turn what is widely a negative into something that could be a positive. Hey, give me a call. I will help your department be better with race relations. I mean, what do you do when you're in that situation? I think she did the right thing. Now, Stubbs still felt that she was humiliated and degraded. She says it shouldn't be strange that a black woman is knocking on doors in 2018. Well, now here's the thing, right? So it feels like in America, I know everybody says this, I've said this before. It's 2018, why is this happening? But it feels like our society itself has regressed. Since the election of Donald Trump, we have actually seen more incidents of this. And maybe it's because people are now filming it. Black people, people of color have had enough. And they're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start filming this shit so that people can see what we're going through every single day. Or it could be there are more incidents. I'm not entirely sure. Could be that we just didn't know about this because people weren't filming it or putting it up or, social media, etc. So that's not to say that Donald Trump is the cause of these incidents. However, I do have to say that I think he has emboldened racists that already exist, the racist underbelly that has already existed in the United States through his rhetoric. And of course, you got to look at the people he surrounds himself with. There was Steve Bannon before the fallout. And then there's white supremacist Stephen Miller. So look, and there are other people that he talks to, he surrounds himself with. And just, he's been racist pretty much his entire life. He's had these biases against other people, and he is actually very, very open with them. And that has a tendency to embolden people who are racist. Now, it doesn't surprise me at all that people are calling cops on black people for doing normal things. It keeps happening over and over again. It has happened to black police officers. Oh, hey, there's a guy who's dressed up as a police officer who is looking into people's windows. Yeah, it was a black police officer looking for evidence in a shooting. It keeps happening over and over again. Barbecue Becky, great example. Pool Patrol Paula. I mean, you name it. We've seen it. This is just another incident in which somebody had a racial bias and somebody thought, oh my God, scary black person in my neighborhood. What do we do? What do we do? You don't do anything. If they're not causing anybody harm, then they have every right to be in that neighborhood as you do. Knocking, especially if you're knocking on doors doing a political campaign. This country's gone insane. If that's not indicative of an issue with racial biases and stereotypes, I don't know what is. But there is a way that we can do something about it, and we can actually realize that we have these biases and stereotypes and admit, yeah, maybe I do think of black people differently, and maybe I shouldn't. That realization would go a long way into making sure these things don't happen. Okay. All right, guys. That's all I got for you guys today. Let me do a quick subscriber count. Started the show at 88,069 subscribers. We are now at 88,071, so we're getting there. Slowly but surely, pushing that rock up a hill. So thank you to all those who are subscribers. Appreciate that. Okay. One more here. Let me see. Okay. So that's it, guys. Thank you. We'll have the yesterday's video roundup up later today. So if you missed yesterday's show, you can go and catch up on that. Patreon.com/TYTNation. To everybody else, thank you. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.